I have seen a lot of things in my 43 years on the bench. I have watched people lie to my face. I have seen criminals break down in tears, and I have witnessed moments of pure human redemption that restore my faith in humanity. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for what walked into my courtroom on the morning of March 14th at exactly 9:47 a.m. Sometimes the people who demand the most respect are the ones who deserve it the least. You ever wonder what happens when someone with power forgets that in a courtroom, rank means nothing? Well, stick with me because what you are about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about authority. And hey, if you believe that justice should be blind to rank and privilege, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now, because this channel is all about real justice for real people. The case file landed on my desk the night before. Case number 47 CV 8824. It looked simple enough at first glance. Traffic violation, failure to yield, minor property damage. The defendant was scheduled for 9:45 a.m. I had my coffee, my reading glasses, and I was ready for what I thought would be a routine Tuesday morning. I remember thinking I might get out early, maybe grab lunch with my grandson. But the universe had very different plans for me that day. The victim arrived first. Her name was Sarah Mitchell. She was 32 years old, a hospice nurse at St. Mary's Hospital. She had been working the overnight shift, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., taking care of dying patients in their final hours. Sarah told me she had been awake for 19 hours straight when the accident happened. She was driving her 2008 Honda Civic, the one with 187,000 miles on it and a bumper held on with duct tape. She was heading home to her two kids, ages 7 and 9, who were waiting with her elderly mother before school. Sarah stood there in my courtroom wearing her nurse scrubs. They were wrinkled and stained. She had bags under her eyes that told the story of too many double shifts and not enough sleep. When she spoke, her voice cracked. She explained that she had stopped completely at the intersection of Broad Street and Hamilton Avenue at 7:23 a.m. She had her turn signal on. She looked both ways twice because that is what her father taught her before he died. She started to make her left turn when out of nowhere, a vehicle slammed into her passenger side at approximately 45 miles per hour in a 25-mile-per-hour zone. The impact spun her car completely around, her airbags deployed. The sound, she said, was like a bomb going off inside her car. Her glasses flew off her face. Her coffee exploded all over the dashboard. And for a moment, just a brief, terrifying moment, she thought she was going to die. She thought about her kids waking up to find out their mother never came home. She thought about her patients who needed her. She thought about her mother who depended on her for everything. But Sarah survived. She climbed out of her wrecked car shaking and crying. Her neck hurt. Her shoulder hurt. She could barely stand. And that is when she saw the other vehicle. It was a brand new 2024 Mercedes-Benz G-Class, jet black, the kind that costs over $200,000. It had barely a scratch on it. And stepping out of that massive SUV was the defendant. His name was General Richard Harrington, 4-star general, retired, 61 years old. He was wearing his full dress uniform even though he had been retired for 3 years. The uniform was perfectly pressed. Rows of medals covered his chest. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. Everything about him screamed authority and power, and do you know who I am? According to the police report filed by Officer James Martinez, badge number 4782, the general did not ask if Sarah was okay. He did not apologize. He did not even acknowledge her. Instead, he pulled out his phone and made a call. Officer Martinez arrived at 7:31 a.m., exactly 8 minutes after the collision. He found Sarah sitting on the curb crying and shaking, while the general stood next to his Mercedes talking loudly on his phone about some golf game later that afternoon. When Officer Martinez approached the general and asked for his license and registration, the general looked at him like he had just insulted his entire family. He pointed to his uniform. He pointed to his rank insignia. And then he said something that Officer Martinez wrote down word for word in his report. He said, "Son, I have commanded over 15,000 soldiers in combat zones across 3 continents. I have advised presidents. I do not answer to local traffic cops, and I certainly do not answer to some minimum wage nurse who does not know how to drive." Officer Martinez kept his cool. He issued the general a citation for failure to yield, reckless driving, and excessive speed in a residential zone. The general took the ticket, ripped it in half, and dropped it on the ground. He got back in his Mercedes and drove away while Sarah was still being examined by paramedics. She ended up with whiplash, a bruised shoulder, and a totaled car that her insurance barely covered because she only had liability. Her premiums went up. She missed a week of work. She had to borrow money from her church to rent a car so she could keep getting to her job. And that is how we ended up here, in my courtroom, on this Tuesday morning, with me sitting on the bench and Sarah sitting in the front row, and the general about to walk through those doors. At 9:47 a.m., the doors opened. The general walked in like he owned the building. He was still wearing his uniform, every medal, every ribbon, every piece of insignia that proved he used to be important. His lawyer followed behind him. The lawyer was carrying a Louis Vuitton briefcase and wearing a suit that probably cost more than Sarah made in 3 months. Now, before I tell you what happened next, I need you to do something for me. I need you to drop a comment below and tell me this. Do you think military rank should matter in a civilian courtroom? Should a general get special treatment? Because what happens next is going to test everything you believe about equality under the law. Go ahead, comment now. I will wait. The general approached the bench. His lawyer started to speak, but the general held up his hand. He wanted to talk. He looked directly at me and said, "Your Honor, I think there has been a tremendous misunderstanding here. I am General Richard Harrington. I served this country for 38 years. I received 2 Purple Hearts, a Bronze Star, and a Distinguished Service Medal. I have briefed members of Congress. I have shaken hands with 4 different presidents. Now, I understand there was a minor traffic incident, but I believe we can resolve this quickly so I can get back to my very important schedule." I let him finish. I let him stand there basking in his own glory. Then I looked at him over my reading glasses and said, "General, in this courtroom your rank does not exist. You are a civilian. You are a defendant. And you are going to answer for what you did to that woman." I pointed to Sarah sitting in the front row. The general's face changed. The smile disappeared. His jaw tightened. He looked at his lawyer, then back at me. He said, "Excuse me, do you understand who you are talking to?" I said, "I'm talking to a man who ran a red light, hit an innocent woman, and then insulted her while she was injured and crying on the side of the road. That is who I am talking to." The general took a step closer to the bench. His lawyer grabbed his arm, but he shook him off. He said, "Judge, I think you need to understand something. I have more authority in my pinky finger than you will ever have in your entire life. I commanded divisions. I made life and death decisions. I outrank you. I outrank everyone in this room. And I am not going to stand here and be lectured by some local judge in some nobody courthouse." The courtroom went silent. You could hear people breathing. Sarah looked terrified. The court reporter stopped typing. Even my bailiff, Danny, who had been with me for 22 years, looked shocked. I leaned forward. I folded my hands. And I said very quietly, "General, you just made the biggest mistake of your life." That is when things got interesting. I asked the prosecutor, Linda Chen, to present the evidence. She stood up with a folder that seemed to get thicker by the second. She started with the basics. The traffic camera footage from the intersection. It showed everything. The general's Mercedes approaching at high speed. Sarah's Honda completely stopped. Her turn signal blinking. The general running the red light without even slowing down. The impact, the spin, the airbags. All of it captured in crystal clear, high-definition video time-stamped at 7:23:47 a.m. But that was just the beginning. Linda pulled out the general's driving record. Turns out this was not his first incident. He had 3 prior speeding tickets in the last 18 months. 2 of them had been dismissed. Why? Because he showed up in uniform and pulled rank, and the judges let him walk. 1 ticket was for going 73 in a 45 zone. Another was for running a stop sign. The 3rd was for reckless driving near a school. All dismissed, all forgiven, because he was a general. Then Linda dropped the real bomb. She pulled out the general's phone records. See, Officer Martinez had subpoenaed them as part of the investigation. And guess what they found? At 7:24 a.m., exactly 1 minute after the collision, the general was texting. He was texting while standing at the scene of an accident he had just caused. The text messages were to his golf buddies. He wrote, Running late. Hit some idiot in a junker car. Dealing with it. See you at 10. The courtroom gasped. Sarah started crying again. The general's face turned red. His lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor, but it got worse. So much worse. Linda opened her laptop and turned it toward the screen in the courtroom. She pulled up the general's Instagram account. Username, General Harrington. Verified account, 47,000 followers. And there, posted at 8:15 p.m. the night before this hearing, was a photo. The general was at some fancy restaurant. He was holding a glass of wine that probably cost more than Sarah's weekly grocery budget. And the caption. Oh, the caption. It said, "Court tomorrow for some BS traffic thing. These people don't understand that some of us are above their petty rules. When you've served your country at the highest levels, you earn certain privileges. Above the rest, come general life, to know your place." The courtroom erupted. People were shouting. Sarah was sobbing. The general's lawyer was frantically whispering to him, and the general, he just stood there with this look on his face like he could not believe he got caught. I banged my gavel. I restored order. And then I did something I rarely do. I asked the general a direct question. I said, "General Harrington, did you post that on your Instagram account?" He looked at me with pure defiance and said, "Yes, I did. And I meant every word. I have earned my status. I have sacrificed for this country. And frankly, Judge, you and this nurse and everyone else in this courtroom should be thanking me for my service instead of wasting my time with this nonsense." That was it. That was the moment. I could feel the anger rising in my chest, not just for Sarah, but for every person who ever got pushed around by someone with power, for every hard-working person who played by the rules while people like this general bent and broke them, for every nurse and teacher and factory worker and truck driver who showed up every day and did the right thing and never got a medal or a parade or a verified Instagram account. Now listen, if you are still with me, you are part of something special. You are part of a community that believes in real justice. So do me a favor, hit that like button, share this video, let people know that in my courtroom, everybody is equal, no exceptions, because what I am about to tell you next is the part that went viral, the part that got millions of views, the part that changed everything. I looked at the prosecutor and said, "Linda, is there anything else?" She smiled. It was a knowing smile. She said, "Your Honor, there is one more thing. We received information this morning from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. Those 3 letters changed everything." The general's face went white. His lawyer stood up and said, "Your Honor, I object. This is a traffic hearing, not a federal investigation." I said, "Sit down, counselor. I want to hear this." Linda continued. She explained that the FBI had been investigating the general for the past 6 months. Turns out he had been using his retired military status to commit fraud. He had been consulting for defense contractors, using his connections and his rank to secure contracts. But he was not disclosing his financial interests. He was taking kickbacks. He was violating federal ethics laws. The FBI had been building a case, and they were about to arrest him. But here is the kicker. The FBI agent in charge of the investigation was in my courtroom, right there, sitting in the back row. His name was Special Agent Marcus Thompson. He stood up, showed his badge, and said, "Your Honor, we have been waiting for the right moment. We wanted to see how the general conducted himself in a situation where he could not pull rank. We wanted to see his character, and he showed us everything we needed to see." The general collapsed into his chair. His lawyer was frantically making phone calls. Sarah sat there in shock, unable to process what was happening. And I sat there thinking about justice, real justice, the kind that does not care about your medals or your rank or your Instagram followers. Agent Thompson approached the bench and handed me a document. It was a criminal complaint, wire fraud, conspiracy, abuse of authority. The charges carried up to 20 years in federal prison. But before the FBI took him, Agent Thompson said he wanted me to handle the traffic case first. He said, "Your Honor, I have been watching your videos online. I have seen how you treat people with dignity. I have seen how you hold powerful people accountable. I wanted the general to face you first. I wanted him to understand that no one is above the law." I looked at the general. He would not look at me. He stared at the floor. All that arrogance, all that pride, all that "I outrank you" nonsense had evaporated. He was just a man a man who had broken the law, a man who had hurt someone, a man who was about to face consequences for the first time in a very long time. I asked Sarah to approach the bench. She walked up slowly, still shaking. I asked her how she was doing. She said she was still in pain, still having nightmares about the crash, still struggling to pay her bills, still terrified every time she got behind the wheel. I asked her what she thought would be fair. She said she just wanted him to understand what he did. She wanted him to know that she was a person, a human being, not some minimum wage nurse he could dismiss. I turned to the general and said, "Stand up." He stood. I said, "General Harrington, you came into my courtroom today thinking your rank would protect you. You thought your medals and your uniform and your service record would put you above the rules that govern everyone else. You were wrong. In this courtroom, a 4-star general has the same standing as a single mother working the night shift, the same standing as a construction worker, the same standing as a teacher or a janitor or anyone else who walks through those doors." I continued. "You have shown me who you are. You have shown me that you believe your service entitles you to treat other people with contempt. You have shown me that you think laws are for other people. You have shown me that you have no remorse, no empathy, and no understanding of what it means to be a decent human being." The general finally looked up at me. There were tears in his eyes now. Too late, way too late. I said, "For the traffic violations, I'm fining you $25,000. Every penny will go to Sarah Mitchell to cover her medical expenses, her lost wages, and the cost of her destroyed vehicle. Additionally, you will perform 500 hours of community service, not at some charity gala, not at some military veterans organization. You will work at St. Mary's Hospital. You will mop floors. You will clean bedpans. You will do whatever the nursing staff tells you to do, and you will do it in civilian clothes. No uniform, no medals, no rank. You will learn what it means to serve without glory." The courtroom erupted in applause. Sarah was crying, but she was smiling. The general looked like he had been hit by a truck. His lawyer was arguing and objecting, but I shut him down. I said, "As counselor, your client is lucky I cannot give him jail time for these charges, but the FBI is about to solve that problem. If you have stuck with me this long, you are amazing. You are part of the solution. You believe in accountability." So before I finish this story, hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Turn on notifications. Be part of this community that refuses to let powerful people get away with treating others like garbage, because we are not done yet. Agent Thompson stepped forward. He pulled out handcuffs. He read the general his rights. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." The words echoed through the courtroom. The general's hands were cuffed behind his back. The medals on his chest caught the light one last time. As they led him toward the door, the general stopped. He turned and looked at Sarah. For the first time that day, maybe for the first time in years, he looked like a human being instead of a monument to his own ego. He said quietly, "I am sorry. Sarah nodded. She did not say anything. She did not have to. The apology was years too late and forced by circumstances, but maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something resembling accountability. After they took the general away, I asked Sarah to stay for a moment. I wanted to talk to her privately. I told her something my father told me when I first became a judge. He said, "The law is not just about punishment. It is about teaching people to see each other, really see each other, to understand that the person in front of you has a life just as complex and valuable as your own." Sarah thanked me. She said she never expected justice. She thought the general would walk free like powerful people always do. She thought she would be the one who ended up paying for everything like working people always do. But today, in this courtroom, things were different. I have thought a lot about that case in the months since it happened. The general ended up pleading guilty to the federal charges. He got 8 years in prison and had to pay back over $3 million in fraudulent gains. He completed his community service at the hospital before his sentencing. The nursing staff said he was quiet, obedient, and actually seemed to learn something about humility. Sarah got her money. She bought a reliable used car. She took her kids on a vacation for the first time in 6 years. She wrote me a letter thanking me and saying that she finally felt like the system worked for people like her. But here is what I want you to understand. This case was not really about a traffic accident. It was not about a general or a nurse. It was about something deeper. It was about the fundamental principle that makes civilization possible. The idea that we are all equal under the law. That your wealth, your status, your power, none of it matters when you walk into a courtroom. The homeless veteran and the billionaire CEO stand on the same floor, under the same flag, subject to the same rules. I have been doing this job for 43 years. I have seen every kind of person you can imagine. Rich people who think money can buy their way out of consequences. Poor people who think the system will never give them a fair shake. Famous people who think celebrity makes them untouchable. Regular folks who just want someone to listen to their story. And in all those years, I have learned one simple truth. The measure of a society is not how it treats its most powerful members, it is how it treats its most vulnerable ones. When a 4-star general can run a red light, destroy someone's car, insult them, mock them online, and then walk into a courtroom expecting to be treated like royalty, we have a problem. When people believe that service or wealth or fame or family connections put them above the rules, we have lost something essential. We have lost the understanding that justice is supposed to be blind, not blind to facts, not blind to evidence, but blind to status, blind to rank, blind to all the artificial hierarchies we create to separate ourselves from each other. That is why I do this job. That is why I sit on this bench day after day, case after case, dealing with the endless parade of human conflict and mistakes and occasionally cruelty. Because every once in a while I get the chance to remind someone that they are not special, that their title does not give them permission to harm others, that in the eyes of the law we are all just people, flawed, complicated, equal people. The general learned that lesson the hard way. He spent his entire adult life climbing ranks, earning status, building an identity around authority and command. And then in 30 seconds, in my courtroom, all of that crumbled. Because he forgot the most important thing. Rank is temporary. Character is forever. You can lose your position, you can lose your medals, you can lose your freedom. But if you have built your entire self-worth on external validation, on power over others, on being better than instead of being good to, then you have built your house on sand. I hope Sarah is doing well. I hope her kids are proud of their mother for standing up, for showing up, for refusing to be invisible. I hope the general is learning something in prison about humility and service and what it really means to be a leader. Real leaders do not need to tell you about their rank. Real leaders do not demean the people around them. Real leaders lift others up, even when no one is watching, even when there is no medal or promotion waiting at the end. And I hope you, whoever you are, wherever you are watching this, understand why this story matters. It is not just entertainment. It is not just some viral video to pass the time. It is a reminder that accountability still exists, that justice is still possible, that no matter how powerful someone becomes, there are still places where power does not matter, where only truth and fairness and human dignity count. Thank you for watching this whole story. Thank you for being part of a community that believes these values matter. If you want to see more cases like this, more stories of accountability and justice, and regular people getting their day in court, then subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, and most importantly, share this video. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that the system can work. Share it with someone who has been pushed around by someone with power. Share it with someone who needs hope. I have got another case coming up next week that is going to blow your mind. It involves a corrupt landlord, a disabled veteran, and evidence that you will not believe until you see it. You are not going to want to miss it. So stay subscribed, stay connected, and remember, in my courtroom, justice is not just a word. It is a promise, and I keep my promise.